Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range with the classic AR-15. This would be a replica of an early model rifle. This one's manufactured by H&R. And yeah, love the AR-15, but I've done a series recently talking about AR alternatives. But we're going to take a step back in time. And even though the rifle I'm going to talk about today is still available in the commercial market, there was a time when this rifle was on the market at the same time the AR-15 was, but it outsold it by tens of thousands of rifles. It was considered more popular. Many people considered it their favorite ranch rifle. And I think I probably just gave away what I'm about to talk about. But that rifle outsold this rifle, which had a stigma attached to it that even the NRA didn't get all excited about defending these particular black rifles. And so coming out of the 70s to the 80s being the time period I grew up in, these weren't very popular. These didn't have the same sales volume as other rifles out there, and it was frowned upon by what we call FUDs today. A lot of my older peers in the 2A world back then thought the AR-15 was just a piece of junk, a poodle killer, it was meant to wound and not kill, all the stereotypical nonsense you've heard repeated over the years. And so let's talk about this rifle that outsold this one for a couple of decades until this one started to come into prominence around the late 70s, early 80s, because patents at Colt started to expire. And then all of a sudden, this rifle took off in popularity, and people don't talk much about the one I want to talk about today. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So most of you have probably figured out by now, I'm talking about the Ruger Mini 14. And when I was a kid, this was the rifle most of the kids my age really wanted and even owned. Now, I wanted the AR-15, and I was kind of the outlier, but I always found it to be a really interesting rifle. I've told the story in the past about my first introduction to the rifle at a National Guard Armory type of an event where I got to pick up a real one for the first time. And from that point on, I was madly in love with the AR-15, and my buddies that had the Mini 14 I made fun of, and they made fun of me for the AR-15, claiming that this was a better rifle. And that was kind of the perception back then in the early 80s and even before then. Now, Colt made hundreds, not necessarily thousands of rifles when they first started spinning up production in the 1960s. Going into the 1970s, of course, they had their patents protecting them, and so there weren't any other options really out there for an AR-15 type rifle, and they were expensive. I know, I bought an AR-15. My mom bought me one as a birthday present before I was legally able to buy one myself, and yes, it's perfectly legal to do that. And yeah, so that rifle was, if I remember right, I wrote it down in the owner's manual, was just over $500. And in 1980s money, that's pretty darn expensive. These would come to market $200 to $300. And so they were significantly less expensive than the AR-15, which also helped it dominate the market. Then, of course, we had the M1 Garand, or Garand, if you prefer, and the M14. Keep in mind, the M14 was something that people were quite aware of in the 1970s and even the 1980s and even today. And the Mini 14 is a miniature M14, as you can tell from the action of the rifle. And so it had that going for it. America loved this particular design because it brought us through World War II and even into Korea. And of course, then it went on to serve as the M14 for a short time in Vietnam. So I think there's a lot of reasons why this rifle was popular. Now, this one is in a Samson stock. This is very reminiscent of the AC556, which would have been a select fire version of this rifle that Bill Ruger didn't want to sell to civilians. He would sell them to law enforcement. Bill Ruger really didn't want to sell you a 30-round magazine either, but Bill's been dead for a long time, and Ruger's an entirely new company. And so now they're making these things. Samson is making the stocks where Ruger used to make them. Samson's now making the reproductions, which are 100% accurate reproductions. And this particular rifle, I took my stainless steel Mini 14 when the stocks were announced. I ordered one from Samson. It took quite a while for it to get here because the anticipation was pretty high, and then I put this one together. But Ruger's now offering this rifle as a complete package, and I'll show you that one in this video as well. Now, some people are going to say this is ugly. I like it. I grew up watching the A-Team, which, again, this rifle would have been very popular in that television show. But check this out. It has a little folding stock here that you just pop down, and it comes out. And yeah, that's a 16-inch barrel, even though it looks really short. And it uses rock and lock style magazines, just like the M14. Right, and you have the external charging handle here. And it would go through, and then your safety right there. It would go through a number of iterative changes. The early rifles, and I have a 1970s era rifle I've done a video on showing the extreme inaccuracy of that gun. It would shoot like 5 inches at 50 yards. That's changed. Modern Mini 14s like this one, they've improved them considerably. Even the old ones, there were kits back when I was a younger man that you could accurize your Mini 14 with. Nowadays, the rifles like you see here are capable of 1.5-inch groups with match ammunition if you do your part. So 1.5, 2 MOA is actually pretty darn good out of a rifle like this, and they're certainly capable of it. Let's do a little bit of shooting with this bad boy. I think I've talked about it long enough. I love shooting these. Whoops. Stock collapsed. Got to be careful here. It has this little release that allows it to fold. And if you don't get it locked all the way out, it can collapse, which is what just happened. So this is the new Ruger Mini 14 that they're selling that has the Samson stock on it, which is a replica of the original Ruger stock. Now you'll notice this one has a longer barrel. The one that we opened the video up with had a 16-inch barrel. This is an 18-inch barrel. Has the same front sight out here on the barrel, but you'll notice it has a little bayonet lug. And that's because it adds very important functionality. Take just a standard US M7 bayonet. This one happens to be a German version. And lo and behold, you have a bayoneted rifle. So that little extra barrel link there allows you to be able to put a bayonet on it. Plus it gives you a little extra velocity. And as you probably well know, 5.56/223 benefits from longer barrels in terms of distance and terminal performance. Now, so everything else in this rifle is going to be the same as the one that I put together when the stocks first came out. And there is a special edition gun that Ruger's making that goes to a specific distributor. This is not that gun. So you'll notice it has the mount on top, right? So we were talking about being able to mount optics. So this would allow me to mount this red dot sight. It's a relatively small base. You can put different bases on it, but keep in mind you have to have an allowance here for it to eject cases. So that's why I see it dished out. So I wouldn't put super heavy duty scopes on here, like super heavy magnified optics. There are other options out there for you and different hand guards you can get and stuff like that. Maybe I'll do a future video. I wouldn't mind tricking one of these rifles out with some more modern features. But anyway, so this little rifle is a lot of fun to shoot. It does look a little awkward with its 18-inch barrel, but I enjoy it because the bayonet. Got some Federal 223 in there. We do want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. It certainly helps out a lot. Been shooting their ammo since I was a kid. Absolutely love the stuff. Great company, great product. All right, red dot, here we go. And this is my little primary arms. RS-10, I believe. You know, with that longer barrel, that added weight of the bayonet out there, this thing is so smooth shooting. Very, very nice. Such a smooth, fun rifle to shoot. And again, the accuracy is certainly there. And yeah, cool stuff to fold this stock. There's a little button right here. You just push that button in, bring this around. Here's that lever. I'm going to pull down on that lever. That's going to allow this to start to fold. And there's a stud here on the side of the stock. Bring this around and then flip it up and over. It'll catch that stud and the stock stays in that position. When you want to release it, just pull down on this. Make sure you push all the way open until it locks. Swing it open. And it's that simple to deploy the stock. So, yep, cool. Feels pretty ergonomic. Pistol grip's got a steep angle to it, but it points really nice, especially with that red dot. I just enjoy these rifles. So while the Mini 14 originally outsold the AR-15 by significant numbers in the late 70s and going into the 80s, by the end of the 80s, going into the 90s, the AR-15 took off. Now, as I've already mentioned, I think it was 1977, Colt's patent expired on the AR-15. And so other companies started to spring up that started to make AR-15s as well. And when you have competition, that competition drives the costs down across the board. So as more and more companies are making AR-15s and making accessories for AR-15s, the popularity slowly rose, and the popularity of these started to wane. The whole black rifles are bad, poodle killers, intended to wound and not kill, and Mattel toys, all the other bad stereotypical wives' tales that were told about the AR-15, those pretty much evaporated. I do recall seeing some old FUDs in Guns and Ammo magazine as a kid referring to the AR-15 as a useless rifle because you couldn't hunt with it or anything like that, and we all know that's not true at all. And so there was just a stigma, but that stigma slowly lifted. We, of course, went into the first Gulf War, then we went into the GWAT, and anytime you have warfare going on, you have soldiers coming home that want their service rifles. That's why we saw the rise of the clone market. People wanted to build clone-correct versions of rifles that would have been used in this particular era of GWAT, for example. And then, of course, you just wanted people to use AR-15s for everything for, sport shooting where they're doing 3-gun matches, self-defense, taking carbine courses and rifle courses, and just having them. They're just outstanding rifles. But it took a while for Americans to accept it. And so that naturally led to the demise of the Mini 14 in terms of its widespread popularity. Now, today, how do I think it stacks up against the AR-15? Do I think it's a viable alternative to the AR-15? Well, yeah, it is. It's a highly functional rifle that's just about as accurate as your average rat-grade AR-15 with the improvements they've made to the guns over the years. The prices, well, now the AR-15 is a cheaper rifle. You can go get a PSA for less. You can get a Mini 14 in this configuration. So that's flipped. So there's really no benefit on the price side, I think, for nostalgic purposes, or you just want something a little bit different. The Mini 14 is going to serve you just fine. It's, lots of spare parts. Gun's been in productions for, decades, and it's loved. And I certainly enjoy shooting them. Would I use a Mini 14 over an AR-15, even an old replica like this? Nah, I take the AR-15. It's just easier to disassemble, things like that. And the ergonomics on it, I just shoot them well. Not that this is a hard rifle to shoot. So yes, it's a viable option for somebody that wants something a little bit different. Just wouldn't be my option. I'd stick with the AR. Now, comment down below, guys. Is there a different rifle out there that you think would go up against the modern AR-15 that could give it a run for its money if it was just a little bit more popular, a little bit less expensive, or something like that? Again, comment down below. We do like to read those comments because you give us ideas for future videos. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the support button right underneath the video player you're watching right now. Click that button and you can help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. I want to thank you guys for 18 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we'll talk to you guys soon.